Welcome to Intersectionality. I'm curious, what motivated you guys to sign up for this one? Yeah.
I wanted to just talk about find out the social justice and maybe really what to do.
That's a good reason. What else? I'm particularly, I'm interested in that, but the guys in particular, right? This is not something that's normally, I would normally expect this kind of ratio. When you read the description, what made you want to sign up for this one?
And I just kind of wanted to learn more about intersectionality and how the races are divided, because I haven't done that in depth yet. So I just want to get more informed topic.
Absolutely. And I mean, the arguments, I'll tell you what, when I was coaching at TUC this year, my team won it on the international side. A lot of things we're going to talk about we use. So the goal for me is to try to give you a sense of what this term means. Part of me didn't want to record this because this word intersectionality is super hyper politically controversial and explosive. I argue that there are many people, I'm going to probably name some names, who lie about what it is deliberately. Sometimes some people are in the debate community who are very well known. And certainly if you listen to a lot of bloggers and such, they'll say intersectionality, oh my God, what the hell is that? There's a bunch of people just protesting about everything, right? So my goal here is to tell you what it really is and what it really means. And from a debate context, so from a social justice context, I think it's a very important concept because it serves as a critique for a lot of identity politics. And it's come up in the last 20 years. It really ruffles the feathers of a lot of identity groups and a lot of identity politics. That's why I'm a little bit afraid of having this on YouTube, because they're going to come after me. I did this work as a graduate student at Yale and was pretty much run out of the academy from African American scholars. Because as a Black man who identifies as straight, who comes from the inner cities and from a poor background, no one wanted to hear this. And we'll talk about why that is, and why that's relevant for you as debaters and people who are interested in social justice. Further, I think even if you never use the word intersectionality in a debate, you can win a lot of debate rounds in this concept. You can help you generate arguments on almost any topic that are often true and highly into the social justice realm, but often under-discussed. So if you're a critical debater, this is a good place for you. If you're someone who cares about social justice of all types, this is a place for you. And you just want to be argued, you want to be a better person, I think this is a good concept to understand. So let's get into it. So I argue that intersectionality is often a critique of identity politics, but to understand what that means, we're first talk about what identity is. So often we think about the various different categories of difference. So I'm going to ask you, what are some different categories of difference that impacts any person? Just shout them out. You don't have to raise your hand. And there's one. Okay, what else? Keep going. Religion, sure. What else? Yep. Let's say orientation. Yeah. We're recording. All right. What else? Yes, absolutely. I'm going to make a distinction here. I like you said income, class, income. There's also wealth. Want that distinction when we talk about identity politics. Others. Okay, so physical traits, which could include, I'll add body image, health. I would add, personally, height, what have you. Sure, absolutely good. I would also, ability or disability. Other categories. Back, yeah. Affect, sure. Well, I would say personality, right? So some things that come up here are introversion, extroversion. And we could go on and on and on. Anything we've missed? I would say immigration status. If I were to add others, pregnancy, and we can go on and on and on. So when we think of identities, we're often talking about these categories and how they affect the person. There's a couple terms here that you should know. The first term is social construction. Can someone tell me what they think social construction means? Sure, yeah.
Something that's not really real, but like constructed or like made by like the community or people around you because.
Mm-hmm. No, you got it, right? So there's a whole debate about, do these categories exist? Are these real differences? And I think there's a lot of intellectual negligence when it comes to getting your head around what this means. So on one hand, so here's the message. On one hand, these things are real because they impact your life, right? Racism does impact people, contrary to some in the Twitter works. However, it is also socially constructed, meaning what the meaning of race is determined socially between individuals. It's been constructed. So one would argue, yeah.
Social construction is like how these ideas are viewed in society.
Yes, how the meaning of those ideas is created. So when we say constructed, construction implies creation and making. Socially, it's created by society. So some of the negligence we see in popular discourse, in social media, is that people screw this up, particularly conservatives, because they'll make an argument like, well, race is a social construction, so racism doesn't exist. Just stop talking about race because you're all the problem. That's BS, right? Because the argument, yeah, we did create race as a concept, but that doesn't mean it doesn't exist. This is what we often call, fancy word, an ontological argument. Some of you will hear, particularly in the camp tournament, ontology, and no one will ever define it. Here's the definition. When we say that something is an ontological argument, it's an argument about existence. What does it mean to be? What does it mean to exist? What does it mean to be real? So the first thing is you're going to get two ideas in your head to get this stuff right. The first is that these categories do exist socially, and they do impact people, while simultaneously they're things that we've created, things that we've made up. This is particularly true for gender studies, right? So on one hand, there is a biological difference between men and women, but on the other hand, what that difference means is socially constructed. The fact that we map maleness to masculinity, or stereotype notions of masculinity, or femaleness to femininity, or socially constructed notions of femininity, that we created that, but that doesn't mean it doesn't exist. Does that make sense? It's created, but it's also real at the same time. So it's this ability to kind of get these two contradictory ideas in your head together that allows you to have these debates in a responsible way. So obviously in our society, almost, no more, in our society, in every society, groups have various different ways they've been oppressed. And we have various different approaches to dealing with it. And what we're going to do, we're going to work up to what intersectionality means. So a lot of my examples, I'm going to focus on African American experience, well, that's what I'm doing my dissertation on, but I'm going to use that as a platform to talk about all the other types of difference on the board. So I'm not excluding all the other forms. I'm just going to use that as a gateway point. So when we talk about African American experience, And in the ways that they've done activism, particularly around the 1960s, the argument was very much what we call a single axis argument. It's about being black in America. That's the primary focus of how you're oppressed. That's how you're handled. So a single axis states that one category is primary and dominant. This is a very common notion in college policy debaters who run arguments on race. It's a very common argument on people in feminism or any other identity group. The idea is you're a member of this group, this identity defines everything. It's the primary notion, it's the dominant notion. By dominant, I mean, even if there are other categories, this is the one by which everything else centers. It's the word axis. So in Black politics, what we've had is this long history where even in the civil rights movement, we've had a very oppressive system, like history. Where in the civil rights movement and some of the other elections we talked about during Equity Day, if you were a woman of color, you were often marginalized and ignored. If you were a queer individual, same thing. Anyone ever heard of Bayard Rustin? I'll write his name down. This is, when I talk about him when I was a graduate student, a lot of African American departments were very angry with me. Very angry. I got called out. Finger wagging at a Yale conference on diversity, as ironic as that is. I'm talking about Bayard Rustin as a Black leader. What Bayard Rustin did was that he taught Martin Luther King everything he knew about nonviolence. Rustin went to Gandhi to learn all the theories of nonviolence, came back to the civil rights movement groups, and was a mentor of Martin Luther King, and taught him the whole philosophy and the strategy of executing. Further, Bayard Rustin was essentially the director of operations for the whole civil rights movement. No Bayard Rustin, no Black boycott, no March on Washington. He did a lot of the work to create the movements and moments that we all know. So the question is, why don't we know about him? Any guesses? Yeah, he was gay. And so unfortunately today, in a lot, if not most, African American activist groups, they're super, super homophobic. You'll even see cute examples of this with Black athletes sometimes. If you ever watch ESPN, sometimes they'll get caught telling other Black players, hey, you're this, insert homophobic term. So there's a large literature, actually, I read a published article about this, a large literature arguing for the distinction between how being a Black activist or a Black person is opposite to being queer. I will save my political views for that. I'm sure you can guess how I feel about that. That's why you don't know about Bayard Rustin. So even within a group that's supposed to be anti-oppression, they think that there is one category, is the primary category, is the dominant category, and those who don't fit the narrative or fit the caricature of what that means to be Black don't belong. This is an important argument when you talk about intersectionality. So bookmark that. The second notion, multiple axes. So this is the idea that people have more than one category that impacts them at the same time. So if I'm Black and female, that is not equal to Black and male, which is not equal to white and female, which is not equal to white and male. So when you think about think multiplication, right? It's two different groups, two different experiences, two different ways of being oppressed, combined together to create a special situation. So those of you who see Venn diagrams, you can think of it that way. If we're talking about types of oppression, you may have certain experiences because you're Black, certain experiences because you're female, and this is the intersection. So Black, female. One of the first people to really highlight this is Bell Hooks in her book, From Margin to Center. where she argues that feminist groups have been, and I agree with her, extremely racist. That when they conceptualize what it means to be an advocate against patriarchy or the oppression of men, their conceptions exclude Black females almost deliberately. Think about the language of this title, from margin to center. What Bell Hooks is saying, even within feminist groups, a single axis group, that white women treat their experiences as center, as the axis by which all experiences of being female occur. So remember I talked about the ontological critique? Here's where it kicks in. According to Hooks, the white feminism, particularly wave, particularly the second wave, was called radical feminism. They argue that there is a universal sisterhood, that all women have the same experiences. And therefore, to fight gender oppression, we have to treat it all the same way. In other words, their ontological argument is that all women's experiences exist the same way. Follow me so far? Hooks' critique is, what you've just done, you made white women the center of feminism. So Black women are thrown out. They're told to literally, and her books are pretty descriptive. They're literally told at academic universities to shut up. Don't tell me about how Black women's experiences are different from Black males' experiences or white women's females' experiences, what have you. This argument forms the basis of intersectionality. At least until 2010. So think of it as like 1986 to 2010. The argument is that we have to pay attention to the ways in which different categories of difference intersect and combine together to create a unique experience and a bad experience, like a vulnerability experience, an oppression experience. So when I describe what you're by Rustin, is a situation where Rustin was Black and queer. So the Black groups are saying, hey, we're all Black. We have the same experience, but they're also simultaneously saying being Black is not queer. And they're also saying if you're Black and queer, you belong to neither. This causes a term that you want to know, hypervulnerability. I'm vulnerable if I'm Black and queer. I'm vulnerable because I'm Black, I get hit by racism. I'm vulnerable because I'm queer, I get hit by homophobia. And then I'm Black and queer, I get hit by both at the same time. So I have nowhere to escape. I can't go to the NAACP and think that they're going to listen to my particular experience because they'll say I'm not Black. Now, the NAACP has gotten better at this in the last 2 years, I'm going to be fair. But a lot of Black identity groups won't. If I'm queer, I can go to the queer identity groups and they'll tell me, well, you don't meet this model of performance and you don't dress the way we do, whatever. So now I'm hyper vulnerable. So if I'm Black and queer and I have a domestic violence issue, where do I go? Nowhere. That's hyper vulnerable. And finally, the integration thesis. What this says, this is an ontological and methodological argument. So let me break that down a bit. And this is intersectionality from 2010 to present. And I think this is one of those arguments, some of the things that will really help you debate. So let's spend a little bit of time here. So what I've just said is that we have category 1 times category 2, meaning I may have race and gender, and if I multiply those together, it creates a special experience. But there's another argument in intersectionality. Actually, there's 2 arguments. Argument 1. Oppressions are imparsible. Let's put that in English. What does it mean to parse something? It means to separate it out. So when I say oppressions are impartial, that means you can't take a person and say, oh, only your race applies here. or only your gender applies here. Consider affirmative action debates, which would just make me make me have a lot of headaches. They'll say things like, well, I don't like that people have privilege in admissions because it's just about class. I don't want to hear about class. And intersectionalists would throw the cell phone at their heads, and rightfully so. Because the argument would be, no, 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 no. Race and class work together. A person who makes this argument is Lonnie Guinier. And I think if you're interested in social justice, this is a pretty amazing book. But mine is Canary. At the TUC, we wrote a case, I got someone to break on that book. Yeah. Her name, Lonnie Guinier. L-A-N-I-G-U-I-N-I-D-R. She used to be at the Harvard Law School. Yeah.
So the overall argument is that these different types of identities, they kind of work together and they're not just separate and individual.
Perfect. Yes. So there's no way you can split this up. Now, in social science, this is one of the reasons I was for a PhD student. Let me tell you how we measure these things. Anyone ever taken statistics? You don't have to for this example. But I'll tell you, the US Census got in a lot of trouble for this. A lot of trouble. Because the way they will, what does the census do? Let's have. Yeah. Yes. And they have to track race data. So here's what they did. They used to do this. It would say, are you black? Are you white? Are you Hispanic? Or no? Are you an immigrant? What have you? What happens if there's a problem here? What if you're biracial or multiracial? Oops. What we've done here is we assume that these things can be separated out. And I can just put you in one bucket. So the census had to redo their categorization because they got it wrong, right? They've ignored multiracial individuals, big groups. In political science, what they'll do is they'll say y equals, they'll say, let's evaluate two factors, x and y, where y is some factor we're trying to evaluate, let's say, number of votes. And they'll say, okay, we have beta 1 is my first variable, x, beta 2, second variable, beta 3. You don't need to know what betas are. They're just the things we're trying to evaluate that establish a relationship between x and y, what we're measuring and what's the effect is. And they'll say something like race or gender. If you're black, you're a 1. If you're white, you're a 0. That's how they'll code their data. What's wrong with this? Yeah, no that.
Also, yeah, let's say somebody is biracial. Somebody comes from, like, for example, the maternal side.
Yeah.
They're white, but on their maternal side, they're black. That there's a lot of what's going on based on our stereotypes in society.
Absolutely. Yep. What else? That's good. Here's another one. So that comment has talked about within category, like differences between categories. If I misidentify who's black or white, I screwed all my data. Right? You would put a person in a position where they got to make a decision that the people who are doing the study don't even know is being made. That's a huge measurement error. Not to mention there's another problem. We assume that this is binary. That you're either black or not. What happens if blackness is not salient to you? Maybe, right? Either in terms of your racial identity or even in terms of your actual experience. So we've already screwed up our whole study because we don't understand this point. Second thing. Oppressions integrate together. This means that, let's taking the race and gender argument, race and gender combine to, what's the word? To an emergent experience. What this means is when race and gender interact, they co-define each other. So not only are they impossible, but they're integrated together. So my experience is integrated. So for example, my experience as a poor Black male, all three categories work together to define each other. So what it means to be poor is merged with what it means to be Black and male. What it means to be Black is merged with what it means to be poor and male. Real life example. When I went to Stanford, everyone's like, oh, there's so many Black people here. And I'm like, none of them know what it's like to be in the projects and I have only $50 to go to undergrad, which is what my experience was. And this is a point that universities are learning, but particularly when they're focusing on first generation students. So when I was coming up, everyone's like, you have great financial aid, right? They're paying all your tuition. And I'm like, and how about books? I can't call mommy and daddy, right? I'm a first generation student. So what happens when I need to go home and buy a plane ticket, but where am I going to get that money from, right? And that's why a lot of universities, like, like Stanford now, they have a whole series of TED Talks talking about that kind of experience. So even in that example, being a first generation college student is a category of difference. Which leads me to the beginnings of debate arguments we can make. Before I get into that, because we've got like 18 or so minutes, any questions that we've covered so far? So here's some takeaways so far. One, when we're listening to arguments and critiques and performances of identity, the first thing we need to ask ourselves is, to what extent are they representing the entire story? Who's missing? If you want to answer, like someone gets up there and plays a whole bunch of hip hop and says anti-Blackness. The first question is, who's included under Blackness? Who's not included? Who's going to be spoken to with this performance, and who's being excluded because of this performance? And that's when you start coming up with turns and long-winding arguments. The second question, when we listen to any kind of identity and politics question, is to what extent are they open to other experiences that don't fit the narrative? So these arguments often have one story. Women are oppressed by Black. Men are doing this to women. Have they considered queer experiences? Have they considered women who may perform masculinity, men who may perform femininity, men who may be allies to them? If they have, those are great cross-ex questions. I'm going to give you a starting point from that. 6 general arguments you can make on any kind of identity politics argument that are inspired by intersectionality. Starting off from this point. So if we understand everything I've said so far, how do oppressions work together? How do they intersect together? What do we do in the debate room?
Like on arguments like about like you said, anti-Blackness and that stuff.
All of it. Queer policy, queer theory, all of it. Anything that's focusing on one axis of identity.
You try to find like which one they still like oppress against.
You could, or that they're not considering in their analysis.
Yeah.
They may not actively. I mean, people who run queer theory are not actively trying to. I hope not oppress, but there may be gaps in their understanding or literature or their methods. The first argument, I need to give you another vocabulary term, is the term essentialism. Identity groups bite into this critique pretty hard. It says, to belong to a certain category, you have to have an essential experience. There's something that has to be central. So to be a Black activist, you have to believe a certain thing, or act a certain way, or listen to certain hip hop, or debate in a certain way, so to speak. That's an example. So the first critique of this is that essentialism reinforces authenticity politics. By authenticity politics, the notion that to belong to the identity group, you have to be real, you have to be authentic, you have to fit the standards of membership. Anyone ever heard of the woman Rachel Dolezal? She's a white woman who passed as being Black for the NAACP. She was president. And she was recognized as such because she did all the performative things with her body, right? She had the hair, she spoke the language. They read her because she fit the cultural standards of authentic Blackness. It became a big, big problem, right, when people found that out. I love Rachel Dolezal. Not literally, but I love her critique, what she represents as a critique of Black political identity and any identity group. Because what she demonstrates is the oppression and the evil of singular access groups that use culture as a measure of belonging and not actual experience. The same thing happens in queer politics, where one critique is heteronormativity. Ian Bernard writes an article whose name I can't say out loud. It has some bad, naughty language in it. It's Bleak Community. And Ian Bernard's argument is that queer groups are supposed to represent a fluidity of experiences about sexuality and orientation, but in performance, they reinforce heteronormative standards. A heteronormative means if you're dominant, you have this role. If you're submissive, you have this role, which is the same thing as what straight groups do. The same kind of gender politics. So, the argument here is by saying, is when identity groups say that there's an authentic experience where you belong and you don't, they bite into this critique of essentialism. They end up ignoring they end up reinforcing oppression within their groups, but also excluding people who do belong, who are the most belonging, who are the most hyper vulnerable. But we don't even see that because we say, you're just an Uncle Tom. You're just an Oreo in the Black community. A few sports figures who've gone through this in the last 5 years, Robert Griffin III. Where in ESPN, once commentator Rob Parker said, he's a cornball brother because he has a white girlfriend. In the Black barbershop, she doesn't belong. He got fired for saying that. Because it's authenticity politics. So even if that sports star was threatened by KKK members, by the very logical of these identity groups, because they're not intersectional, that person was thrown out. And if he needed help, or his experiences of racism get completely ignored. I can say the same story about feminism. In fact, I will. Shanti Mohanty is a very interesting person here. So if you're doing an IR study, you will want to know her work on third world feminism. Because what she says is that when feminists talk about international relations, they always talk about it from the perspective of rich white female liberals in the United States. They don't ask themselves, what do people in colonialized countries go through from a gender perspective? How do they deal with being a target of United States policy? The second argument is that with essentialism, we ignore hypervulnerability. We ignore the situations where people, not only are they screwed by the dominant society, but they're also doubly screwed or triply so, but when they try to retreat to identity groups and activist politics, and those activists don't respect their methods or don't consider their experiences. This is an argument that Black feminists made that led to the creation of intersectionality. For example, one woman, Kimberly Crenshaw, so if you're particularly interested in intersectionality, you have to read her. The article Mapping the Margins is considered like foundational work. You can also YouTube her. Lots of articles about her. Lots of ones who lie about her work in intersectionality, but the responsible ones will tell you what's going on. What Crenshaw argued was particularly interesting in terms of domestic violence, where a lot of domestic violence groups in the 90s, they said they were against domestic violence when women got beaten or hurt or what have you. But immigrant women of color were often deliberately turned away. Why? Because they had rules that were designed more for white affluent women. You have to speak English. You have to have certain resources. You have to do this. You have to be the empowered woman. Whereas if you're talking about people who are in a in a situation of color, a lot of these norms don't exist. They may not have resources. They may not be able to get a car to leave the place in order to get to the shelter. And as a result of her work and a lot of the critiques that came out, domestic violence shelters have done a better job of being intersectional, of asking themselves questions and challenging the assumptions of who they think, for example, a battered woman is. The third argument, and a lot of TSC routes have been one of this argument, is the oppression Olympics. So Monica Martinez what this argument says is that a lot of identity politics groups, they try to put groups against each other. So in the article I wrote my freshman year, that Stanford published, it talked a lot about how African American groups try to defend their roles in civil rights against queer groups. We can't let gay groups have marriage rights because so many African American groups said this, they're asking for special rights. Not recognizing that the very people who oppress African Americans are the same who oppress gay groups. So what Monica Martinez is saying is, why are these other groups fighting each other? Why are we debating about who's the most oppressed? We're all getting screwed. We're playing the Olympics where the gold medal winner still loses. Example, Asian Americans. A.T. Lee is another person, and I often use her theory about racial triangulation to point this out. But here's what she says. Take affirmative action debates in the United States, where people often use Asian Americans as an example. She draws this out. Let's see if I get this right. Where it's two axes, inside, outside, low status, high status. So what often happens to the Asian Americans in the affirmative action debate is that they're considered high status but on the outside. But more like here. Not the highest status, but here. Asian Americans are inside. They're domestic, but they're considered low status, like here. But white individuals are both, here. The triangle, the evil triangle. The race triangulation thesis says that Asian Americans are used as pawns against Blacks and Latinos to say don't have affirmative action. They suck. They're stupid, right? Asian Americans, well, if there's racism, why aren't Asian Americans doing so well? But here comes a nasty, nasty problem. But they're also not getting the same privileges as whites. They're on the outside, but they're stuck. They're never fully high status, and they're never fully inside. Which is why a lot of Asian Americans get very angry at that kind of argument, and rightfully so. It's, you're not including us, but you're trying to put us against other people, we're never at the top. So Monica Martinez's argument is saying the same thing, is that it's dumb for identity groups and activist groups to allow themselves to be put in competition with other marginalized groups. Instead, they should work in coalitions. They should work together. They should find the connections and the intersections of their experiences as opposed to playing a dumb Olympic game where they're fighting over who's the most oppressed. The fourth argument, co-option. When we buy into this notion that there's an essential identity, when we refuse to be intersectional, what that allows dominant groups to do is to co-opt and take over minority activist groups' arguments and take them as their own. Why this is particularly true under multicultural politics that says blacks have one thing, others have others. The one that you'll see in the diversity literature when you become working on a corporate job like me is that the examples often made diversity as having a taco night for Latino Americans, and this makes everyone want to vomit all over the floor for that racism. Language that you'll often hear under this argument is, white folks telling black people, this happened to me as a debater, I'm more black than you, I listen to rap. I bought. Yep, it was said. Said it all the time on the circuit too.
On the circuit?
Oh yeah.
How do you win?
You beat the hell out of them in the critiques. But in general, the co-option argument is pretty important here because particularly when a non-person of color is trying to speak for other people's experiences, that can lead to critiques. Now the argument here, okay, let me be clear. I'm not saying you belong to a certain group in order to make these arguments. What I'm saying is you should be very careful. You can't speak for the group. Especially you can't say, I'm a better representative than you. It's a debate argument for this. Is he speaking for others can? I highly recommend you all read this article. Alcoff is a name. The article is Alcoff. If you Google Alcoff speaking for others, you'll see this. If you're asking yourself, how do I become a representative for groups who are not mine? Read this article. You should have this in your file. You may have to run it. The argument here is, if you want to represent or work for a group that's being oppressed, you have to be modest. So the racist people I was telling you about, when they say, I'm blacker than you, they're missing this argument, right? The issue is not that you have to represent or belong to, but rather that you're an allyship or you're working with others. You're speaking with them. You're not telling them their experience. But what identity groups miss when they have this essential identity is that they allow themselves to be co-opted by people who have a lot of power but don't represent the experience. So this is the Rachel Dolezal example, right? When we say that blackness is you have to speak a phonics, and people say that in academia, by the way. They say that in schools. Then, when someone who doesn't have that experience does that behavior, they co-opted the whole movement, they co-opted the whole performance. So, the remaining time, let's talk through the current topic. So how do you use these arguments to win debate rounds and frankly be better people? More so emphasis on the latter. So with my students, when we have a topic, let's say like the one we have now, compulsory national service, and you're like, how do I use intersectionality to get at this topic? The first question we ask is one, who benefits? And two, who gets screwed? Before we get to the debate topic, let's use a different one. Let's say the topic is, this was a former topic, adolescents have to have the ability to make autonomous medical choices. So things like family planning, things like abortion. The adolescents should be able to make these decisions without their parents' knowledge. So just on that example alone, what are some scenarios by which you would want to affirm this topic? We'd want a child to be able to have an abortion without telling their parents. I want you to imagine, when would it be dangerous to demand parental consent for abortion? Well, I don't care about your religious notions of abortion. That's not the conversation here. I'm trying to combat the intersectional issue. Yeah. Yep. Keep going.
Like when it's a trusted member, like your family circle, who like impregnated you.
Yeah, very good one. Yeah. What else?
When your family was mentioned every
Right. So good answers. So if I'm part of certain religious groups and I'm a child, if I say that to them, I could get killed in certain countries. Oh yeah, very much so. I can see some not yet. If I'm a Latina in the inner city, I have violent parents, what do you think is going to happen to me? Yeah, you may be kicked out, all kinds. Maybe. I mean, these are rough things to say, but this is intersectionality. Right? So if I'm this person who's like, well, parents ought to know everything, well, that's an assumption of privilege, right? What happens if your parents are poor? What happens if they're religious? What happens if you're in an environment that has undertones? What happens if you're in the Middle East? What happens if you don't have adequate health care? Right? What happens if you're part of a religious community and you'll be discommunicated or expelled? And you're an adolescent, so you don't have the resources to make up for that loss. So even if, like, those are huge disadvantages that you can run as 1AC, arguments that you wouldn't normally think of when you're just thinking from a kind of lily idealistic perspective. So let's talk about this topic for the maybe 5 minutes. So who benefits from compulsory national service? Yeah.
Military.
Yeah, absolutely. Mm-hmm. Who else? Mm-hmm. Well, let's be more specific about government. Yeah, go ahead.
Like the people in privilege who, if they're like in the military, they'll probably be okay.
That's a great argument. I love that. Right? So think about the draft, right? People can buy their way out. Who else? Maybe older pop generations. You want those little whippersnappers to know the benefits of civic duty?
Lawmakers,
How so?
because if they have more troops that are expendable, they can
Mm-hmm.
pay for more.
Yeah. Yeah. What?
But wouldn't, I may be interpreting this argument wrong,
Mhm.
but wouldn't if we're having a draft, if more diverse people would be in the military, like a
Mhm.
higher socioeconomic classes as well, so they
You could make
the
that argument.
lawmakers would be less willing to do more?
Absolutely.
Oh, because there's some.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Argument can go both ways, right? Who gets screwed?
Oh, the poor, the lower class.
How so?
victims.
Oh, well, wait. How's that?
Oh, because like it's been shown in the past that like lower class people and people of color, they've been overrepresented in the military
And why have they been overrepresented in the military?
because of their race and their social class.
Mm-hmm. Go ahead.
It's because the government like basically imposes on them the belief that the only way for them to get citizenship or citizenship is the military.
Immigration K, I like it. Yep. Yeah, that's a disadvantage. That's a disadvantage. You've already come up with 2 contentions, 2 terms, right? Elaborate on that, right? You can say, also add a third. If you have compulsory national service, that's a way for the government not to offer the incentive they would need to convince people to actually do the job. If I could just take Mark Zuckerberg and kick him out of Harvard when he leaves Harvard, instead of coding Facebook, let's make him do coding work for the government. Then I don't have to pay him crap. That's a high skill job that I get to pay cheap. So the argument could be, if people don't want to join the military, whose fault is that? Don't pay them $10 an hour. Pay up, pay what they deserve. So this is one model you can use that we've already come up with like 4 or 5 arguments that are gonna be really hard to block against, just from that frame. The second one, that's one model. What's the second? Universalize the particular. Don't card this person, but I wanted to give due diligence. Slav Zizek. He writes like a fool. He's a brilliant guy. But I want to steal his idea. So this is where you can come up with a lot of case arguments and turns and wrong-winning arguments. The idea of universal in particular, think about what we talked about during this module. We talked about particular experiences. So we want to find arguments that can apply across the board. You use intersectionality. So we think of a particular person and their situation, and we extrapolate out. Right? We think the hyper-vulnerable person's in this position. What does their experience tell us about how the system is screwed up? What needs to be fixed? So, when I'm talking about compulsory national service, I can imagine what happens to the poor Latino guy who has to care of his mom. He barely gets through high school because he's working 4 jobs. College is the only way that he can actually help his family get out of poverty. And we're going to force him in 2 years of $20,000 a year. What's wrong with that, right? Now, what does that tell us about compulsory national service in general? So that's what I mean by universalizing in particular. Think from the perspective of the least well off, to find disadvantages or advantages on the topic that can allow you to make bigger arguments. This is a very powerful national circuit strategy that you often see teams doing and winning national tournaments on. They'll say, here's a particular example, and This example shows us disadvantages of the topic. Greenhill did this on a topic about the living wage. They said Division I athletes who are minorities ought to be paid. They're exploited labor. They're left to starve because they don't get stipends, they don't get paid. They're in a particular intersectional experience, and never use the I word. And this tells us about what we ought to do in terms of basic income for all people in this situation. They want probably 3 terms. So this is the second model you can use to construct arguments, or when you're answering people's arguments, you can literally imagine the hyperbole, and that can give you your responses. So looking at compulsory national service, keeping it real goes a long way, right? They're saying, let's just say this argument. Everyone's going to be exposed to each other. They're going to work together in the barracks. But think about it. What individuals would be in danger in those barracks? Like, you write a pretty kick-ass in that case about this, right? If I'm a queer individual, I want a whole bunch of hyper-masculine guys, I may be in some trouble. If I'm a woman at West Point 10 years ago, I could be in some trouble. And that can tell me broader problems in how we constructed identity, broader problems in the structures that we have, and that can form the basis of disadvantages, advantages, and cases. I think that's our time, but takeaways. So intersectionality, a lot of people are going to tell you, well, intersectionality is just being a bunch of people who protest everything and wear pink hats and just say, just whine all the time. Before this session, I actually saw videos like that. You don't even see black scholars, I won't say their names in debate, who will say intersectionality is just, white feminism. Stupid. Intersectionality is a philosophical critique of how we understand identity, and the goal of it is for us to understand how do we make these ideas of structures, of oppression more complicated so we can capture what's really happening. That's the ontological argument. The methodological argument for you guys as debaters is that you can use this as a model to kind of make your understandings of arguments better by seeing what's often unseen, which is the whole point of reading. Thanks, guys. If you have other questions, find you in Socrates hours. Can you unplug me, please?
Oh, sure.